They sent an elite assassin to kill a lone human. He found a ghost instead. The air on Viridia Prime tasted of ash and ozone. A fine gray powder coated everything, blanketing the skeletal remains of vast hydroponic farms that now clawed at a sky the color of a fresh bruise. Kavorn's advanced optical sensors filtered the dim, red light of the system's dying sun, painting the desolation in crisp analytical detail. He kept his plasma rifle at a low ready, his movements economical and precise, a stark contrast to the hulking reptilian trudging behind him. "I still don't see the point," Grok rumbled, his voice a gravelly vibration in Kavorn's inner ear comm. "Axiom's cleansing division was here for 3 cycles. Nothing survives a cleansing." "Our contract is for confirmation, Grok, not commentary," Kavorn replied, his own voice a clipped avian hiss. He didn't break stride, his gaze sweeping across the silent ruins. "We verify the asset is neutralized. We collect our fee. It is simple." "Simple?" Grok scoffed, his heavy boots crunching loudly on the powdered ferrocrete. "That's what High Command said about the asset on Cygnus X4. How did that turn out? Team Scythe found in pieces. They said Orvok's armor was peeled open like a fruit, and they never even found T'Chel's head." Kavorn's mandibles tightened. The Cygnus X4 incident was a black mark on Axiom's otherwise perfect record. An entire 4-man team of specialists gone. The official report was heavily redacted, but the rumors painted a gruesome picture, one that defied logical analysis. Team Scythe was arrogant. They underestimated their target, Kavorn stated, though the words felt hollow even to him. He scanned the silent wreckage, the feeling of being watched prickling at the back of his neck. It was an illogical, primal instinct that his species had evolved beyond millennia ago. Yet it persisted. This place was dead, empty. His sensors confirmed it. But his instincts, the ones that had kept him alive through dozens of hostile takeovers, screamed that they were trespassing in a predator's territory. "We will not make the same mistake." The trail led them into the colony's dead heart, the primary maintenance corridor for the geothermal power station. Here the air was stale and cold, tinged with a sharp chemical scent. Dark, oily residue stained the bulkheads in weeping patterns. Kavorn paused, his talons clicking softly on the grated floor as he ran a gloved finger over a series of jagged glyphs scratched into a support beam. "What is it? Some local scripture?" Grok grunted from behind him. "No," Kavorn said, his internal scanners cross-referencing the markings with Axiom's field symbols. His core temperature dropped a fraction of a degree. "These are kill confirmations. Team Scythe was here." A moment of tense silence passed through the squad's comm channel. "Sir, I have a signal," the squad's sensor tech crackled. "Single life sign, 50 meters ahead. Stable vitals, minimal movement." "Location," Kavorn ordered, his voice tight. "Storage annex, end of this corridor." Kavorn raised a clawed hand, halting the squad. This felt wrong. Every instinct honed over 100 successful missions told him this was an ambush. From his wrist gauntlet, he deployed a trio of micro-drones, each no larger than a Viridian beetle. They zipped silently down the corridor, their cloaking fields rendering them all but undetectable. On his private HUD, a video feed resolved into a clear image. The room was dark, cluttered with overturned crates and discarded tools, and in the center, sitting calmly on a reinforced power conduit, was the human. He was wearing a tattered colony jumpsuit, his posture relaxed, his hands resting on his knees. He was completely, utterly still. He was waiting. "Target is unarmed, sir," the tech confirmed. It was too easy. Far too easy. A cornered animal should be frantic. A survivor should be hiding. This human was expectant. "Breach Plan Delta," Kavorn commanded, making a decision. "Non-lethal takedown. I want this one alive for interrogation. On my mark." The breacher set the charge. On Kavorn's silent signal, the door to the storage annex vaporized. The squad poured in, weapons raised, a 4-being machine of lethal efficiency. The trap sprung instantly. A piercing, high-frequency whine screamed through their comms, and Kavorn's HUD dissolved into a waterfall of useless static. "Optics down!" a trooper yelled, his voice garbled. "Switching to—" His words were cut off by the sharp hiss of venting gas. Odorless, colorless. Kavorn's training screamed a single word: neuroagent, disorientation, confusion. Then the emergency lights died, plunging them into absolute suffocating blackness. Panic erupted. A choked cry, "Contact left," was silenced by a sickening wet snap. Another trooper screamed, a sound that ended in a strangled gurgle. Grok roared in fury and unleashed a torrent of plasma bolts from his heavy repeater, the incandescent rounds searing the darkness for strobing instants. The flashes revealed nothing but the terrified face of his last squad mate, then a blur of impossible speed. A heavy, armored thud echoed from the back of the room. Grok was silent. "Report!" Kavorn bellowed into the dead comms, firing his own rifle blindly. The plasma bolt illuminated an empty corner. He spun, senses screaming, just as something solid and unyielding struck the back of his helmet. The world fractured into a spiderweb of light, and as he fell into the cold, silent dark, his last coherent thought was not of failure, but of a ghost that hunted professionals. He was right. It was a trap. Consciousness returned not as a gentle wave, but as a hard shove into reality. Kavorn's first sensation was the cold. It was a deep, sterile cold that seeped through his undersuit. His helmet was gone. The air tasted filtered, recycled. He tried to move, but his limbs were secured to what felt like a metallic chair. He tested the restraints, magnetic clamps, high-tensile polymers, expertly applied, no slack. He was a prisoner. "You're awake." The voice came from the absolute darkness in front of him. It was the human. His tone was calm, unhurried, devoid of triumph or malice. It was the voice of a being performing a calculated task. "Where am I?" Kavorn asked, his own voice a dry rasp. "A room," the human replied. The simple answer, a mocking dismissal of the question. Kavorn forced his breathing to remain steady, suppressing the surge of primal fear. Panic was a luxury for amateurs. "My squad!" "They're here," the voice said. "Somewhere." Kavorn's mandibles clicked softly in the dark. "Are they alive?" There was a pause, a beat of silence that felt heavier than the darkness itself. "You're asking the wrong questions, Kavorn." The use of his name was a physical blow. It meant they had access to Axiom's personnel files. It meant this wasn't a random survivor fighting back. This was planned. "What are the right questions?" Kavorn countered, shifting from prisoner to professional. He was an interrogator himself. He knew the game. "A good start," the human's voice approved. "You work for Axiom Executive Solutions. Your contract was issued by a shell corporation funded by the Galactic Federation's Internal Security Council. Your mission was to confirm my termination. You are the third Axiom team sent to do so. How am I doing so far?" Kavorn remained silent. Every word the human spoke confirmed his worst fears. This was an intelligence operation. "You see," the voice continued, closer now, "your superiors think this is a simple pruning operation. They find a loose end, a human who survived a cleansing, and they hire the best to tidy up. But they keep making the same mistake. They assume we're just scattered remnants. They assume we're not talking to each other." The voice was directly in front of him now, a phantom in the void. "Here is the right question, Kavorn. Why did I let you live?" A faint light flickered in the oppressive dark. It wasn't a lamp, but a holographic display that coalesced in the air before Kavorn. It showed a star chart of the known galaxy. "Axiom operates in 17 sectors," Kavorn stated, his professional instincts taking over. "Your point?" "My point," Elias Vance's voice replied, "is that you are looking at the wrong map." The display shifted. A complex web of glowing filaments ignited across the chart, connecting dozens of systems, many deep inside secure Federation space. Red nodes pulsed in supposedly uninhabited nebulae. Blue lines traced paths through well-patrolled trade routes. It was a network, vast and invisible. "What is this?" Kavorn breathed, his analytical mind struggling to process the scale. "The Aegis Protocol," Elias said. "Every node is an operative, a listening post, a hidden sanctuary. Every line is a quantum-entangled comms link that your Federation can't even theorize, let alone detect." The colonies the Federation cleansed? the ones where a single human survivor was reported. They weren't failures. They were sacrifices. Bait. We seeded them, knowing you would come, just so we could study your methods, your response times, your command structure. Kavorn felt a cold dread that had nothing to do with the temperature of the room. He wasn't a hunter. He was a specimen under a microscope. You still think in terms of killing, the human's voice chided gently. It's your biggest flaw. Killing me would have accomplished nothing. It would create a mystery, an anomaly in your reports. The Federation would have been satisfied, Axiom would have collected their fee, and the Aegis would remain a ghost. But you, alive, sent back with a story of impossible survival that your superiors will dismiss as cowardice or an excuse for failure? That is far more valuable. A silhouette shifted in the darkness, leaning closer. Kavorn could feel the body heat from the human, a stark contrast to the room's chill. A dead assassin is a mystery. A terrified assassin is a message. To punctuate the statement, Elias allowed a microburst of data to bleed into Kavorn's neural interface, a residual link from his disabled comms. For less than a heartbeat, Kavorn's mind was flooded. He saw a live feed of an Axiom sniper team on a frozen moon, their heat signatures perfectly outlined in the sights of an unseen human drone. He heard a conversation between two Federation security chiefs about the human problem, their words being transcribed in real time by an Aegis AI. He saw the financial transaction that had paid for the cleansing of Viridia Prime, already flagged and being traced by human operatives. It was gone as quickly as it came, leaving Kavorn gasping, his mind reeling from the sheer depth of the infiltration. They weren't just hiding. They were embedded. They were everywhere. They had been watching this entire time. The Federation fears we will become a threat, Elias concluded, his voice soft again. They are correct, but they thought the threat was our potential for war. They never understood. The war started a century ago. It's a silent war, a war of information and misdirection. And you, Kavorn, you just became the turning point. Now you will be my messenger. You will tell them to stop. Not because we are afraid, but because we are tired of playing this game, and you will not like the way we play the next one. With a soft hiss, the magnetic clamps holding Kavorn retracted. He slumped forward, catching himself on the arms of the chair, his muscles aching. A moment later, the lights flickered to life, flooding the room with a sterile white glare. He blinked, his sharp avian eyes adjusting slowly. It was a small, featureless medbay, and it was empty. The human had vanished as if he were never there. He slid off the chair, his legs unsteady. A quick assessment confirmed his fears. His sidearm was gone, his comms unit was a fused piece of slag on his wrist, and his armor's internal systems were dead. He was disarmed, disconnected, and vulnerable. He found Grok slumped against the far wall, a massive purple bruise already forming on his thick reptilian brow. He was breathing. The other two troopers were in similar states nearby, alive but stripped of their gear, a monument to their failure. Kavorn roughly shook Grok's shoulder. The brute groaned, his eyes fluttering open. That primate, he growled, staggering to his feet with Kavorn's help. I'll tear him apart. We report this to High Command. They'll send a dreadnought. They'll burn this entire world to glass. No, Kavorn said, his voice flat and hollow. Grok stared at him, his small reptilian eyes wide with confusion. What are you talking about? He ambushed an Axiom kill team. And he won, Kavorn countered, steadying the larger reptilian. He neutralized us without taking a single casualty and then let us go. Think, Grok. If we file a full report, what happens? We are punished for catastrophic failure. We become a laughingstock. High Command will assume we were incompetent and send a bigger, more arrogant team. That is precisely what he wants. They stumbled out into the silent corridors of the power station and made their way back towards their ship. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Every gust of wind sounded like a whisper. The human was gone, but his presence was everywhere. The silencer sat untouched in the ashen clearing, its ramp waiting. It wasn't an oversight. It was a final, dismissive gesture. He wants us to run back and tell them, Kavorn said, finally understanding. He wants them to escalate. This is a game to him. And we are the pieces. The engines of the silencer hummed with a reassuring familiarity as they broke atmosphere, leaving the gray, silent world of Viridia Prime dwindling in the viewport. Grok was slumped in the co-pilot's chair, his bruised head in his thick, reptilian hands, muttering curses about primates and ghosts. Kavorn, however, sat perfectly still at the command console. The star chart on the main display glowed before him, but he saw it differently now. The familiar trade routes, the secure Federation sectors, the contested border territories, it was all a lie. A beautifully crafted map laid over a hidden world of silent, ceaseless conflict. He knew what would happen if he followed protocol. He would be debriefed, his psyche evaluated for post-traumatic stress, and ultimately, his testimony would be buried under layers of corporate denial. Axiom's directors were too proud, too invested in their reputation of infallibility, to accept that they had been so thoroughly outmaneuvered. They would call him a coward or a madman, and then they would dispatch a dreadnought. More pawns to be sacrificed in a game they didn't even know they were playing. The human Elias Vance was counting on Axiom's arrogance. Kavorn would not give him the satisfaction. His talons, once tools of a simple predator, now moved with the grace of a master strategist. They danced across the console, bypassing Axiom's secure channels entirely and opening a heavily encrypted, backdoor frequency he had acquired years ago. A ghost channel to an information broker who served the Corporate Intelligence Directorate, Axiom's greatest and most subtle rival. He composed a short, anonymous message, its contents more potent than any plasma bolt. Subject: Axiom Human Contracts. Assessment: all operations compromised. Asset on Viridia Prime is not a rogue element. Confirmed network node. Human response capability is orders of magnitude beyond estimates. They are watching. They are waiting. Recommendation: immediate strategic disengagement. Do not provoke. He sent the message, wiping the logs clean. Chaos would erupt within the galactic power structure. Axiom would be investigated by its rivals. The Federation would be thrown into paranoia. The human's message would be delivered, but not as a simple warning from a failed assassin. It would arrive as a seed of doubt planted right in the heart of his enemy's enemies. Kavorn leaned back, a cold, clear understanding settling over him. He was no longer just an enforcer. He was a player. He looked out at the swirling colors of hyperspace, at the star chart that was now a web of lies, and understood a terrifying new truth. The galaxy's most dangerous predators weren't the ones with the biggest claws or the most powerful ships. They were the ones everyone had agreed to ignore.